Well, there we are. Hey, everybody. As I said in the chat, new platform today. So as always, I am looking for feedback on levels. No, I'm not looking feedback from the audio. I'm looking for feedback from you to let me know what you think of the audio here. All right, so let me know. I've got a lot of stuff going on screen today, and I appreciate your support, emotional at a distance though it may be. This 5-Watt Live is brought to you with the support of TrueFire. More about my good friends at TrueFire later on in the stream. It's never too late to start, or to change, or to succeed. I have always believed this. I get emails and DMs every week from folks that are part of 5-Watt World who say that they've always wanted to play, but they never found the time, or that they gave it up 30 years ago only to buy a guitar again during COVID, and that after thinking about it their whole lives, they just started playing, and they got close to retirement. Bebe says we're good. I guess we're good. Excellent. And another category I hear from some people who say that they played throughout their life, but they never achieved the success in music that they were looking for. So I wanted to share some music life stories and describe some different levels of success and see where we all kind of come out the other side. I'll be going through my notes a lot today, so I'm going to apologize in advance for not being in the chat as much as I'd like. And you guys know that you're always incredibly distracting to me in the chat because I'm a very social person and I would just as soon sit here and talk. But people don't log back in for that very often. So you got to stay on task to a certain extent, and we'll be doing that today. But you know, I'm going to be going through 4 different stories, and so as they occur to you, I'm sure you'll think of stories of your own. And I'd really love to hear those. So I'd ask you that you put those in the chat, and you know, go ahead and write bigger comments than you might normally. Put them in the chat, put them in the comments after this stream's over so that they're there all the time. Hopefully we won't have to edit this, and they'll be able to stay there. Cool? All right. Let's get started. The description, you can see the description for the online store for t-shirts, hoodies, and hats, etc. Also the links for 5-Watt on 5-Watt World, Friends of 5-Watt on Patreon. There, I can almost say what I wrote. If there's what you want to be in closer touch with me. If you want to get one of the 5-Watt World Barber bus pedals, the bus overdrives, they're back in stock in both white and black. The REVERB links are in the description. If you're from outside the US, then you should go directly to David, and the email address for David can be found on his website, and I'll have the website in the description after this. I've been writing all day, and reading the thing over. You'll see. I got a whole new set of abilities here. Beve is here today. That's Beve. And I appreciate him. He's the best. The music in the intro was, of course, Pierre Piscatelli playing a version of Chick Corea's Spain. That was actually, I'm going to cover it. It was first recorded on his 1971 album Light as a Feather. Chick was 30 years old when he wrote that tune and went La Fiesta, the tune that comes after, and recorded it with the band, and it's the song for which he's probably best known. The melody comes from Joaquin Rodrigo's Concerto de Aranjuez, which was first performed in 1939. It's perhaps the most famous piece of guitar music ever written, but Rodrigo didn't play guitar. He was a pianist. He was 38 years old when he wrote that piece of music, and it made his reputation and ultimately his career. There's a lot written about how musicians and composers do their most important work before they're 30, but this is an example that runs contrary to that, and I'll probably give you some more today. One of the things I kind of want to start off with by way of context is something that John Cleese, who was founding member of the British humor group Monty Python, is famous for saying. Creativity is not a talent, but rather it's a habit. After Monty Python, Cleese had a very successful career as a corporate consultant, getting teams to be more creative. I've always found this interesting because it reminds me that we aren't born being creative or not creative, that our sense that some people are more creative than others is just that. It's our own perception of it. We all have the ability to be creative. We just don't always spend the time practicing, of getting in the habit. I don't believe that there's any notion in any of that theory that has anything to do with the age limit as well. Like any habit, we can start it at any time. We can always, as I like to say, choose. So I'm going to start with the story of a friend of mine. It's also both starting late in life, and it's about success, though maybe not the sort of success you might expect. It's about my friend Rick Beato. If you watch his channel, you know that Rick had an interesting time getting through his undergraduate degree. go see his videos about that. But by the time he got to his master's degree, he blew right through it on the strength of his interest in the subject. He was then hired back at Ithaca College as a faculty member in the jazz department. But when he was about 30 years old, he had a chance to play in a rock band, and he left his college teaching job and the security that gave him to go on the road and take his shot. That didn't work out as it rarely does. This led to moving into producing. And around the same time, after many, many, many years, around the same time that the record labels were stopping funding new recording projects, Rick had no idea what he's going to do next. So late at night, after producing all day, he started making videos for YouTube on his phone. Go look them up. The earliest videos. Their video and audio quality is very poor, but the content is excellent. It'd be easy to say the rest is history, as Rick is easily the biggest music YouTuber on the planet. If you look at the history of his channel, you can see different chapters of content, places where he took a turn. But the fact is, Rick's entire life has been marked by one thing that led him to success. He's always been interested in starting something new. This is a picture of Rick from the time when he started the channel, and that's with his son Dylan. His son Dylan is now 17, of course. That was back when Rick was 54 years old, and he taught himself how to use cameras, how to use all the software needed to make and edit videos. But just as importantly, he began studying YouTube's success in the same way he had once studied the sounds of his favorite record albums. He was ready to take a risk, but he also had a lifetime of taking chances and putting in the work to become successful. He also decided early that he would not take on any outside sponsorships. Instead, he'd build his own courses from things he'd learned to teach over the decades before and sell those courses as his main products on his channel. For this reason, he's always been completely independent and free to express any opinion on the platform that he's created. This is just one aspect of his success, that having put in all this hard work, at 62 years old, he now gets to take the business in any direction that he chooses without having to worry about going outside looking for financial backing. The fact that his interests always seem to pair well with ours is just a bonus. The thing that I don't really spend time writing up in this is that Rick also is probably one of the most successful people, the best person I know at staying in touch. I would say that both with his family and all of his friends, he's an amazing success at creating community and staying with that community. And this extends to his channel as well. He knows everybody in the business and everybody seems to like him. The next story is about my dad, actually, and I'll put up a picture. These are not in order on the screen, unfortunately. Here we go. This is a picture of me and my father from the year before he passed away. My father was an artist and an art professor. When he'd been a student at Syracuse University back in the late 1950s, his college roommate was a music major, a pianist and a composer named Charlie Combo Piano. Yeah, I always figured I remembered that name wrong, some trick of my youth, but that's correct. My dad had never been exposed to classical music, and now it was all around him. First generation to college, oldest kid in his family, so first one to leave the farm, he became fascinated by piano and piano music. The whole time I was growing up, he'd say how much he always wanted to learn how to play the piano. As I studied music in college, he kept saying it, that he'd always wanted to learn to play, since he always encouraged me to study all kinds of music, I encouraged him to take lessons on the piano, to start playing. My parents eventually split up and my dad remarried. They had a son, my brother Ian, and eventually Ian took piano lessons as kids do. Again, I encouraged my dad to play, to take lessons with Ian, but he was still working and he never made the time to do it. Dad's wife Karen had played as a child, and Ian showed great progress on the piano, so they replaced the old spinet with a beautiful baby grand, a K Kawai, really nice piano, and I liked to play it when I visited them. My dad retired from the university, and again I encouraged him to take up the piano, that it would be good for him, like studying foreign languages or something, to keep him sharp as he got older. And you know, I never once in all of those years of the old piano sitting in the parlor of our farmhouse when I was a child, right through that baby grand in the house in Rochester, I never once saw him sit down and even just play a single note. Never sat there marveling at the sound. Now I wonder, in hindsight, thinking back, if he was afraid that he wouldn't do it well, or that all of us kids, there's 5 of us, would tease him or something. Or was he really just not that interested enough to make time to do it? I get all these emails from folks in 5 Watt World And I wonder how my father thought about it, because I certainly didn't talk to him about it. But I hear from folks that regretted it all the time, and that's what made me share this story. Of course, my dad was very successful in many, many ways in his life, particularly as a father. But he never made time for his own personal musical journey, separate from listening to records and playing records for us, which of course was really important to all of our development. And it's always left me wondering whether he wished he had, like so many people that write to me from 5-Watt World. I got some top chat there. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Pops up in bright color on the screen. Well, I'm ripping through these stories. Let's see. Next one is of Chris Welton. I become friends with a guy from the channel. He's from California. We've never met in person, but we've exchanged emails and texts on what's going on. I asked him if he'd achieved his ideal of a musical success, and this is what he sent back to me by text. It was a long text. He said, "Nope, I'm just the opposite. First, I was unsuccessful because I had no talent or skill. Then I was unsuccessful because I was a jerk bandmate and a control freak. Then I was unsuccessful because I let other people put me down and I believed them. Then lastly, I was unsuccessful because even though I had finally great material, some talent, experience, and a good business plan, all the decision makers saw was, quote, an old white lawyer wannabe with a guitar, end quote. I never found anyone to take me seriously as a musician, even though my absolute love of music and guitar and unyielding faith in myself has been the one constant in my life. It just never happened. Sometimes you just have to live with that. So now my little brewery and winery gigs are my personal Wembley Stadium or Fillmore East or Beacon Theater shows. I play for my bandmates. I play for my kids when they show up. But mostly I play for myself because I love it, even though I was never a success. To which I responded, that sounds like a success story to me. And that's a picture of Chris with the band. That's Chris with his wife, and Chris tells me that the other guy in the picture is the real guitar player in the band, which cracks me up. All right, I'm next. This is a picture of me when I'm about 16 years old with my whole family. You can see that my dad was the high school art teacher in hair length as well as everything else. That's all 5 of us. I've been playing guitar and singing since I was about 14 years old. I've said it here before. I grew up at a time of singer-songwriters, James Taylor, Neil Young, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Often then, we learned to play guitar so we could sing the songs that were on the radio. I did that right through college, playing in a duo with one of my best friends, Dick Detweiler, doing coffeehouse gigs and bigger shows when we could get them. I'd sing all the tunes in lower registers, and Dick would take all the high ones, particularly the Neil Young songs. But late in college, I got interested in jazz, and after college, studied jazz guitar with Rick, and that's the music I listened to and played for about 25 years. I'll bring up a picture of the Lost Dog Band. This is the full band at Lost Dog. The band went through many different changes, but this is one of the versions. And interestingly, the guys, Gene Cothran on my left on piano, and Joel Smales, next is Tina Lama, and Joel and Mike Carbone. Tina, actually, of all the students that were in the band, to my knowledge, Tina is the only one who became a professional musician and gigs all around New York on bass, upright and on electric. In '97, I put together a jazz quintet and wrangled a weekly gig at a local restaurant in Binghamton, the Lost Dog, playing standards. And I played that gig every single week for 5 years, always playing at the edge of my ability there, taking a risk every week. Everyone I'd hired into the band were better musicians than me, but it was my band, so I got to choose the tunes. That's a tradition in a pickup jazz gig. If you have a standards gig, or what we refer to as a real book gig, where all the jazz standards are, whoever booked the gig gets to call the tunes. So I chose the tunes. I'd shed them all week, and since the tunes were all jazz standards, the other guys in the band, or gals in Tina's case, would just know them. I'd say, how about If I Were a Bell, the Miles Davis version? And they would all know the arrangement from the record, and we would just go. In 2001, I moved to Vermont, and I stopped playing guitar for a couple of years while I settled into being the head of a department. Life went by, and I still hadn't sung for a very long time, hadn't even owned an acoustic guitar. 2 years ago, I moved to Syracuse, back to upstate New York, and found a group that did weekly acoustic jams. I bought, hard to find my own picture here. Here we go. Embracing my own adage that the best time to buy a guitar is when you need it for the gig that's already booked, I bought my 2006 Southern Jumbo. And now about once a month, I get together with those folks and we each call a tune. And the tune that you call, you're expected to be the one to sing it. To practice for these tunes, I'd play them to my then girlfriend, now fiance, soon to be wife, Roman. This is actually at my Christmas present last year, was a gig in town that was a retrospective of Jim Croce's work. When I first started doing this, I'd often tear up, singing a love song alone to her in the living room. Honestly, I still do sometimes. She asked me how I get through them when I sing them at the jam. I reminded her that singing to her is very different than singing in a room full of mostly 60-year-old retired guys. Oh, and she said she doesn't like country music, but when I sing the songs, they don't sound like country. And I guess that's a compliment. I loved playing with my jazz quintet. They were, let me get this back off here. There was a community there with the band and the folks who came to see us play every week. We packed the place every single week. So it felt like a success in that it brought people together and we all had fun. But I get that same feeling singing old bluegrass and country tunes with the folks at the monthly jam. And if I'm pushed, I'd have to admit that the most musical success I'd say I have is singing those songs for Roman right here at home. And that idea put me in mind of my last story. And that is of Vince Gill doing a 4-day run at the Ryman Auditorium recently in Nashville. By most any measure, Vince Gill is one of the most successful musicians of our time. He's won more Grammy Awards, 22, than any other country artist. I got pictures of back here. Let me go here. Tom Bukovac. Let me see if I got it here. Is this smooth, huh? Tom Bukovac recounted on his channel that the band was made up of many friends of Vince's, 11 people in all, a big band by any measure, including my new friend Jed Hughes, standing there next to Bukovac. Tom said that the shows were preceded by many long days of rehearsal. Get back to Vince. Rehearsals. Now, a lot of time at rehearsals, artists won't go through the whole tune. But I was struck by the fact that Bukovac said that Vince so loves to play that they would not only go through the entire tune, they would have everyone solo. And that Vince would sing them all the way through. Let me see, I got another picture of Ryman here, of Vince at the Ryman. No, I'm running out of pictures. Anyway, Bukovac said on his channel that he did the math, and I was telling Rick about this morning. He figured that those long days of rehearsals added to the 4 nights of 4-hour shows at the Ryman, that Vince Gill had sung over 450 songs in the course of that week. And further, I want to tell everybody that he sang them all either in the original key or in a key a half step higher, because the new key would be better for the guitar solos. This is impressive by any measure, but if you add to that, at the times of these recent shows, Vince Gill is 67 years old. I think we'd all agree that that's success. I went to Wikipedia to check some of the stats from Vince's career. They're impressive, of course. But the final line of the write-up was the one that struck me most, as it echoed what I'd heard from folks that had met him over the years. That he's referred to as the nicest guy in Nashville. And I don't know the man, but I'll bet that last bit is the part that feels the most like success to Vince Gill. I read this earlier today for an edit, and I thought to myself, man, you're getting to be a real sentimental old fool. But if a measure of success includes how long we're remembered, then it's the success as humans that lasts the longest. No one will remember that we could shred over those tough changes. They'll all remember if they enjoyed being there with us. That's got to be a new record from me getting through my notes. And I left Vince up for that whole last bit. Thanks, Vince. Thanks for covering for me. All right. How's everybody doing? Let me make the chat a little bigger. If I put everybody to sleep, I hope you're getting good sleep. That's all that matters. So, okay. Let me get to the end, and I'll go backwards. Have people been adding their comments in here? Daniel says, I should be able to show this here. Okay, new software. There it is. Daniel says that Ask Zach just did an interview with him. Yeah, I understood from Zach that he had wanted to put that out a little earlier, but they couldn't get it done. Ken Major is a local guide here. He was able to sit in with the jam. It was a lot of fun. Try to get Ken to come back. That was my dad. That was my dad with the white beard. Yeah, and I do look a lot like him. There we go. Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's never too late to learn any of these things. I love that he points out that he just learned how to read music. Yeah, I was playing a Parker. That was my 1996 Parker. Now Mod Scientist jumps in to tell me that my audio is low. I actually control it here. Here, I can bump that up a little bit. How's that? Your dad encouraged you. When I told my dad I wanted to be a musician, he said, you can't do it. Yeah, my dad didn't encourage me to be a full-time musician. He was glad, I think, that I majored in economics in college, but he was very encouraging about music all along, and he really enjoyed me playing forever. Let me pull this over here where it's better, in line. I want to thank Shane for that super chat. Shane says, thanks for all the effort and time you put into these discussions. I've started recording my first album, hope to distribute it this year. Okay, I got to work on my timing this, turning this on and off. The most music with the least gear. There you go. Oh, we got some questions here. Christian Jackson says, could you please talk about the tonal difference between cranking an amp clean until it reaches overdrive and using its master volume channel to overdrive the preamp section? Depends on the amp and very different. And actually, I'm going to have David Barber on again soon. So come on back and ask us that question again. And David will be very specific because that is really David's thing. David was an amp designer before he was a pedal designer. So pull this down a little bit. There, I can tweak the sound up a bit. Success or joy? Well, you know, the thing that really we spend more time talking about is the definition of success. Chris was saying that I missed my chance a while ago, and it could have been a conversation that lasted the whole hour about what definitions of success are. You can see that my definition of success has for music has always had a lot to do with playing music with other people, chasing community, trying to get with other people to do that. I think that's really important. Barefoot Blue says that the volume issues are from many rock gigs. I think Robot Shlomo that was over at Filming Night that was talking about double cuts last week, and I hadn't seen that they were doing new ones. David Burkhart. Yeah, hey David. Did I see that Randall Smith was dumped from Gibson? Yeah, I did see that. I actually kind of thought Randall would step down when he sold it. I think he was 70 when he sold a couple of years ago. He had a really wonderful response to my Mesa Boogie video, invited me over to dinner. They used to do a Teams meeting on Wednesday nights where the whole team would go out to dinner, and he said I was always welcome to come for a Teams meeting. And since I live on the East Coast, I thought that was a very safe invitation, but it was very sweet of him to put it out there. Oh, this is nice. How do I make this bigger on screen? There we go. And then it disappears on me. I went back to college a few years ago and got a degree. Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. Still learning how to handle this piece, I guess. Joy is the only success that counts. Without that, what is there? It all starts there. Obviously, joy for others. You know, it's you want to get everybody involved. I don't think so. Jeff is saying, do I still have sound issues? I do not believe so. My definition of success doesn't impact yours. If you get what you need from playing at home, God knows that's the vast majority of what most people do, including me, playing a lot at home. So. Nice. Inspiration's huge, really important. It's great that you enjoyed Chris's work and got that going again. Questions? We're coming up on time to do my TrueFire ad here. Thanks, Leland. Audio and video are good for a change, hopefully. All right, roll in with your questions there, and I will jump to my TrueFire spot. As you know, I reached out to TrueFire to be my sponsor because I'd already used them for many, many years. I always laugh when Jeff McElwain calls me in the morning because I'm frequently working on one of his old courses, and I tell him that I spend time with the younger version of himself before he calls. I'm actually still working on some of those bluegrass lessons, and I'm embarrassed to say that I should have pulled the guy's name because I didn't know it before I started doing lessons, but the lessons are excellent. And it made me realize how much people that I love, like Brad Paisley's playing, is rooted in bluegrass. There's a lot more chromaticism in bluegrass guitar playing than I thought there was. That's where all the sweet blue notes are. There's over 45,000 lessons in the library covering all styles and levels. There's tab notation, jam tracks, slow motion, looping. You can help tailor the course to fit your learning style. Using Grammy award-winning artists, top session players, and world-renowned instructors like Jeff and the guy that I'm taking the bluegrass lessons with, the content at TrueFire is the best in the business. I signed up for the All Access Pass a long time ago because it lets me take lessons in any part of the catalog that I want, and I like lots of different kinds of music. I set my iPad on the music stand and take a lesson each morning to push the reset button before I wade into writing or editing for the day. You can use the discount code 5watt35 to get 35% off courses. And as I said, you can also sign up for the All Access Pass. If you use the link in the description, you'll be supporting 5 Watt World because TrueFire can tell that it was me that helped promote it, and you would also get world quality lessons at the same time. So learn, practice, and play with TrueFire. All right, let's get back to doing some questions here. That's true. Rick was on the pedal show a little while ago, although I was just talking to him about he's going to New York to do some more interviews. There's another moment of inspiration being shared. Luis Razo says, I follow 5 Watt World all the way from Baja, California. Guitar histories are fantastic. Thanks. I will keep them going. I had a friend that used to say, Steve, I understand many things and I tolerate very few. It was a college joke, but I understand the sentiment there. Thoughts on the Greer Lightspeed? I actually had a Lightspeed for a very short time. I found it to be very bright. And I'm working with David Barber on a pedal that we're going to have come out early this fall. That's right around the corner, isn't it? That's going to be a boost overdrive. And I'm very excited by it because it lets you do a lot of tone tailoring at the boost stage. It also makes an amazing standalone overdrive besides being a boost. This is very sweet. Daryl Moore says, my dad did not want me to play. However, he taught me tube and amp technology when I was a kid. I have a degree in electrical engineering and play in his memory. Very sweet. My age has nothing, Frankie Holt says, age has nothing to do with my lack of music success, lack of ability on the other hand. I actually find that there's always places to play. You just find other folks with a similar ability and go for that. Okay, Veronica, I'll read it all, but as you see, they're not staying on screen long enough. My Uncle Sal started teaching me at age 5. I've gigged on and off since I was 16. I'm now 77. I've recorded my music for the last 3 years and no plan to stop. Blues, jazz, etc. Veronica, that's fantastic. I love that idea. Sean Murphy says, I started playing guitar 1 month before my 39th birthday and I'm 40 years old. I'm now playing things I never would have dreamed. Everyone needs to start. Never too late. Excellent. Thank you. That's great. All right, well, I don't know how many people are here. If we have any more questions, maybe we'll have a short stream today. Veronica says, now I need to learn to read music. Do you? Like I said, maybe short stream today. Any final questions? Maybe we'll let this stand on the reading assignment that it ended up being. I don't understand this. 255, 255, 252. I don't get that. Couldn't agree more, Mike. Tim and Jeff are amazing teachers and great guys. You don't have to play out to enjoy playing music with other people. You can look around town and just play, like I do those kinds of things. David saying thank you. I think we're wrapping it up here, folks. Lugubrious. Maybe talk about the fact that starting something late might mean learning shortcuts or tempering expectations on yourself. It's a good point. Maybe I should have written more about that. Maybe I should have written more today, but it was 9 pages. The reality is that we get to define success for ourselves. And the success that we dictate for ourselves has everything to do with then how satisfied we're going to be about it. So. William X says, sing in public, go join a choir first. Yeah, or just sing at home. Sing in the car. Sing doing the dishes. Sing making breakfast. Louis Razzo, is there a substantial difference between a 335, 345, and a 330? The 335 and the 345 are essentially the same guitar, with the 345 being a little dressier, a little fancier. A 330 is fully hollow. There's no center block, so it's a very different guitar. It's more akin to an Epiphone Casino. As a matter of fact, during the late 60s, they were built on the same production line right there in the factory. Advice on finding people to play with around town. There's a couple of ways I would recommend, but the number one always seems to be go to the local music store and put up a sign. Be specific about the kind of music you're looking for. Be honest about your playing level. and whether or not you're interested in gigging or if you're just looking to get together with people to jam. Think about a place to do it. If you can host it, I think that always makes it work. We actually move the jam it typically goes to 3 or 4 different houses for people that are comfortable or have the space to host it. So that's the reality of that. I think that's the best way to do it. There are organizations like Meetup, and there's even an app that does called Bumble that does both dating but also helps people connect on a friends level. And I've known people that I know one person who've used it to make friends with people in their area. I didn't end up using it that way, but I thought that was really interesting that app is there, because I have a real clear sense that that there's a loneliness epidemic, that people don't spend enough time with other people. So 335 and a 339, very similar, but the 339 is an inch narrower through the body. And I actually think that the guitar feels a little stiffer sounding overall. It's maybe a step towards a Les Paul, although maybe like a hollow Les Paul like the one I have now. Alistair? I don't have any experience, geez, with Burns guitars, sorry. Messed Up Dog says, advice for trying to fit a new genre into a scene. I'm trying to do a rock locally, but garners a relatively small crowd. Yeah, I think that depending on where you live, it also might end up being a situation where you have to resign yourself to playing at home, playing with other people, playing in a jam and enjoying that. There aren't that many gigs out there. They're just not. And most of those gigs are looking for cover bands. Yeah, I think Robert's right. Robot is Shlomo's right. That's putting up a flyer is the way to go here. Low wattage D, Steven Sutton wants to know, low wattage D style options, 20 watts or less. We don't need 50 or 100 watts or another 500 to 100 in another attenuator. I think he meant 50 to 100 in an attenuator. It's interesting. Robin Ford, really since the late 90s, early 2000s, has been using that Dumble as sort of a symbolic placeholder and playing into the clean channel. And I've talked to lots of people that saw him in Europe playing into a super reverb and a DeVille, which is what I think is in his rider, where he jumpers the 2 amps together, using the preamp from one to drive both power sections, and using his Zen drive for an overdrive. I personally prefer, what a surprise, the 5-watt World Bus to a Zen drive, because it is both more versatile, but I actually think it feels more to me like, I have never played a Dumble, but it sounds more like the sound of the Dumble players I like the most. I think if you're looking to do great low wattage Dumble sounds, I think a pedal is a great way to do it. David and I are also going to do a future episode on headroom and the myth of headroom, as David refers to it sometimes. So whether you need 20 watts or more is a big question mark. In the living room right now, I actually have my original 5-watt World FYD designed 5-watt World, not 5-watt World, 5-watt Champ, what he calls a desktop champ. It's a 5-watt amp, although right now I think I have a L6, so maybe it's a 7-watt amp. It's turned way up, but then I'm still using a pedal to do my overdrive. So Eli Josephs, I think we're still talking about 335s. A 336 is a different guitar in that it doesn't have a center block, but it is a carved top guitar, carved maple and then top, and then carved back and sides out of mahogany. There you go, everybody can move to Corpus Christi, and Sean will connect you with the locals here. This is a great question. Saying at 72 he's learning to play songs. Is it necessary or advisable to learn pentatonic minor and major scales and modes? Not necessarily. I actually would encourage you to learn arpeggios, simple arpeggios first. Triads, major triads, minor triads. I think it's a shorter route to melodic playing. Especially if you're starting at that age, I think that's great. I think Luis Razzo is saying very much what I've been saying all day. I agree. It's never too late to start. and you succeed, you have to decide what your definition of success is. I don't have any experience with the ToneMaster Pro. I kind of have committed my time to the Line 6 stuff, and I don't want to learn a lot of different systems, and I love how many updates they do. So the pedal boards, the little pedal boards in both rooms are two of David Barber's pedals. It's going to be one of the new Boost overdrives, and then a bus into an HX Stomp, and I'm actually building a larger pedal board that is going to come out in a video in October that's built around a Stomp XL and a number of pedals in the front. David's a very brave person. Sit outside your local coffee shop with your guitar, even if you don't play it there. Oh, you mean just sit there with a guitar? It's funny, I have a story. When I was living in New Hampshire, I was in a coffee shop way out, like Littleton. Littleton? No. I can't remember the little town I was in. But the first guitar that I learned to play guitar on was borrowed from my neighbor. And I didn't even know it at the time. It was a late 50s Gibson archtop guitar. And didn't have a pickup, but it was an archtop acoustic guitar, and it had been her father's, and I was borrowing it from my neighbor, who was a grown-up with 3 kids, and she was just kind enough to let me learn to play it before I could buy my own guitar. I'll never forget the look of that case, because it was an original case too. And I went over to this guy who was in the coffee shop, and I said, is there a 1950s Gibson guitar to go with that 1950s Gibson guitar case? And the guy looked at me, we became friends, because people don't recognize your guitar case. He actually had a Yamaha in it that he said he liked playing just as much from the 70s, and so that's how we got going. So I think that's a version of what David Burkhart's talking about. Chuck Benner says it's the music that he listened to that drove his interest. Yeah, I think that for most people, like I said, for me, that's especially true. There you go, Frankie. He says he misses his old 335, but he did it for diapers and he'd do it again. Attaboy. That's a good idea. Also post some things at the university if there's one nearby. Yeah, actually, when I was in university, I know a guy who had played saxophone in a big band back in the day, and had been an arranger and a pianist. And I used to hang out with him and talk music, and it was really incredible. It was really incredible. Great guy. And I met him through the school. There you go, Sean. Yeah, the coolest thing about it is it does the overdrive special thing, but it also does a great Marshall JTM 45. And if you boost it, then you're into JCM 800 category. So it's very cool. Has really, really been wonderful working with David on that. All right, any last questions here before I jump? I'm gonna jump a little early, run to dinner. I'm glad that the technology seemed to work well and got through my pictures, my images, etc. I really thank everybody for the support in being here and coming and hanging out. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon. I am working, I'm going to start a new script tomorrow, and I'm going to keep it a secret. But I've got a lot of, I have the list of videos mapped out from here through the middle of January at this point. So if there are things you absolutely need to see sooner, go ahead and drop me an email or DM on Instagram and put your votes in for things that I haven't done yet. Okay? All right. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see everybody soon back here. I'm going to run Pierre out on the intro outro for us. Take care.